This is not something that you should actually stick to and do for extended long hours without no exit plan. In order to get started, you guys will actually want to do a couple things first before we start getting ready to talk to some people. So I'm basically going to help you right now go through getting ready for your setup. The first things that you guys would want to do is actually really think about to yourselves, how far do you want to take this? And if it's to the point where this is something you absolutely know you want to do, by all means, make sure that you guys get everything set up properly as far as whatever is required in your state to get going. Even if you are just doing it as a sole proprietor starting off, just make sure you have everything set up, as well as just check your state requirements. Not every state is required to have licenses, some states are. So do make sure you check those things out before you get going into this and end up getting in trouble or wasting your time. What you guys could actually potentially get to with this is amazing. Yes, you can reach six figures as a braider. Do I advise doing it just braiding? No, because you want to make sure that you have a combination of things to produce that income. If you're doing it just braiding, you end up making it to the point where you have back pain, hands cramping up, carpal tunnel issues on that sort. This is not something that you should actually stick to and do for extended long hours without no exit plan. This is great to get started up, and this is great to get you the funds to be able to do the other things to get you to the six figures. Okay, so now after we got that out the way, now the first thing that you want to do to get started up is figure out your styles. Figuring out your styles is very, very important. It is not something that you want to keep on switching up, because the whole point in this is to be able to build. We can't build on something where you're unsure on what you're putting on the foundation of it. So you want to be sure on what you're starting with. And then the way to be sure with what you're starting with on what styles to choose is to, one, make sure it is your absolute best styles. It needs to be what you are absolutely amazing in, stuff that you know you can kill it every time. And I say that because if you end up doing these styles and you're, one minute your style looks really good and another minute they like, I don't know, you are labeled as a hit and miss stylist. And if you are new to a city, that's not good to do, because you want them to start building that respect for you in that area, and they're not going to if you look unreliable. So pick styles that you are really, really good in. Then you also want to make sure that you check out your local city. Check your local surroundings to actually really see what people are currently wearing out of that style list that you had chose on the ones that you are absolutely amazing in. Now, and when you go check these places, you can go check places like the grocery store, the gym. You can check out fairs, like different things that is going on in your area, especially ones that are big events, because that's going to be stuff where it's a lot of traction, a lot of people are at. It helps you really see what that area is wearing. So, and that's important, because if you guys are looking online, you're going to see all the viral knot lists and all of these different things that people are wearing. And what if in your city they're wearing soft locks? What if it is a big thing for soft locks in your city and you're advertising knot lists? That doesn't help you. So you want to make sure that you are actually checking your city to see what people are wearing. Making sure you take note on where you saw the styles and what the styles were, as well as what you can do better on those styles. Now, these are going to become very important when you're getting ready to the point where you're advertising, and when you're able to actually do the styles. Those things are going to be very important, so make sure you note those. All right, then you want to figure out what out of each style are you going to provide, and what is the client going to be expected to provide. Now, everyone is advertising that everybody should, supply hair. That's to a certain extent. There's also other styles that you guys could be doing, like crochets and things like that, that I don't recommend having all of the different variations on stock. So you want to really figure out what you are going to actually be capable of having, and is it going to go to waste? What products are really going to be needed for every single style, because those are going to be the items that you want to purchase more of. Now, if it's an item that is not used mostly, do not purchase a big amount of it, because hair products do expire. So when you guys look at your bottles, check your bottles. On the back of the bottles, it'll have like the little cap that's kind of like halfway open. That tells you how many months that product is going to be good for. So you want to make sure that you are not buying big loads of things that are going to last you over the year, and then you probably only did the style a couple times. So don't do that to yourself. Only get what you need when you are getting ready to get started. So after you figured out what the client is going to need and what you are going to need, make sure you're writing all this down, because you want to go back through when you're getting ready to do your shopping and all of that stuff, that you have what you need and you have what you're going to be able to let your client know what they need. Then you want to figure out your location. The location that you guys choose is really what's going to determine your startup price point. So if you guys you could choose from booth rent, you have suites, you can do a traveling stylist, or you can work from home. So all of those different options that you have all come with different price points. I'm going to run through a couple pros and cons for each one, so that way we're not making this too long. For your suite, I do recommend making sure you guys put up at least minimum 4 months of rent ahead of time. If you have not done funding where you have a way to have, you know, extra funds there. Like if you haven't set up the business stuff where, you know, you have access to extra funding, you're only working with what you have. So make sure that you have enough put up to give you some cushion to keep going. That's one of the cons with starting off with a suite, because of the fact you have to make sure you have some stuff ahead of time. And for some people, they need to start now. Also, depending on where the suite that you're at, the prices will vary, and different things that are included and what's not. So always ask what's included, what's not, what things you need to get, and so on. That also means as far as your setup, you will end up having to provide for things in the setup as far as getting it ready. Some places will already come with shampoo bowl, chair, things like that. Some places will not come with those. So you will have to supply that, as well as your decorations and all the other things you want in there. So be mindful of the full total cost of what it's going to cost you to put it up and set it up the way that you want it done. Now, when it comes down to the pros of having the suite, yes, it comes off very professional. People really like it. It looks nice. It's easy to share your location, you know, things like that, because it's a public place. Then, as well as, you also get traffic from surrounding areas. If you're in an area that has like shopping centers, things like that, it's easier to have, you know, walking traffic to end up getting that. You also are able to control the environment in your room setting, not the entire place environment. So always think of that too. So even if you go visit a salon suite and you're like, okay, I don't like the walk-in, but I like the room in the suite, pay attention to that, because that's also maybe something that your clientele may get that hint of too, that they don't like that walk-in as well. So think about that. When it comes down to booth rent can be cheaper than doing the salon suite. However, sometimes depending on how they do it, based off commission, based off weekly, based off monthly, it depends on what they are offering. So always ask what the rent will be and how it is charged. Then you want to, that could potentially end up being a con on the charging for it. Also with that one, a con for me is the control the environment. That is very big for me. So that is somewhere that you cannot control the environment. You have chairs that are sitting next to you, depending on what type of clientele you serve. They may not feel comfortable sitting around other people. If you are in a salon, or a salon that's tied to a barber shop, that's something to think too. How do the women feel being in a chair right next to males? So that's also something to think about if you end up deciding to do booth rent. Now, the pros to doing booth rent, you can end up having a really nice community and vibe with the people that are around you. You're not alone on your day-to-day. And on top of that, you get to learn from being in that environment with other people. You can see where their mistakes are, their achievements, how they got there. Like, you get more day-to-day help, really, because I mean, you seeing what they're doing, it's helping you be able to grow faster. So it does help being in a side of an area where you have other stylists and things around to learn from. Now, if you guys choose home, choosing home, the cons, of course, the very first one is you are opening your home to other people. So yes, make sure that you have security measures in place. You know, you have other things together, because yes, you are in your home and you're allowing people in your home. Be choosy with your clientele. Do not take everyone. Everyone is not welcome in your home. So make sure you pay attention to that when you are doing your selection process and when you're taking those consultations to get into if they're going to be a potential client. It does sometimes come off as unprofessional depending on your area, also depending on your approach when you are speaking to people and when you are broadcasting your presence for your online presence. So depending on how you have that set up, people can view you as unprofessional. So you want to make sure that you, if you are choosing home, that you don't give off that tone that you are unprofessional. And honestly, it's just something that was given a really bad name from prior things. So you have that option to really create the tone of that environment. Also, that is a pro as well as doing home. You control the entire environment from the walk up to where they're actually going to be serviced at, all of that. So even if you have a small space, you can make that small space amazing, clean, presentable. It looks professional. It's set up the way you want it. Like, you can really control that entire thing. So that is a pro to it. It is also a low cost startup. You do not have to have a lot of funds because you are already paying for the home. So it's not like you have to factor in more expense that's going to be with that, outside of other more utilities and things that you may be using now that you are offering that, as well as, is this going to be a way that you would be able to do certain things. So that's also to figure out for whatever your licensing or thing is required on what you can service and do as a braider, because that comes as a part on what is actually going to be able to be done at that home service. So you want to make sure you pay attention to that. Then you have traveling stylists. Traveling stylists can also have cons and pros too. The cons to it is, one, it can be a lot of restrictions depending on what state you're in as far as what services you are able to offer inside of the salon and outside of the salon. So once again, check those requirements. You also aren't able to really control on seating. So depending on seating or the setup, none of that is in your control. You cannot control the environment at all for the most part, besides if you end up doing a standard location. Say for instance, if you want to rent out, they have places where you can rent out suites for just that certain time frame. They also have places at hotels that you can rent out rooms and things like that just for that time frame, or if you are actually going to that person's home. So that's to be considered. You want to actually find out what's going to be there, what you're going to need for each time that you are doing this. If you are traveling to people's homes, what things are they going to need in order for you to actually get the job done? So you want to pay attention to those, as well as depending if you're driving and you're doing local instead of flying. That too makes a difference. Are you traveling far or are you traveling close? Does it need gas or do you need flight money? Like, those are things to actually really think about for the full entire part, because it's going to play a role when you come down to thinking on your pricing. So those could end up being pros for you or cons. So now for me, pro would have been you get to travel. So with that, you get your adventure, you get to see new places, you don't have to be in the same environment all the time. You get to actually really, have that breather if you need it. But it depends on the type of person that you are, on if traveling is more convenient or it's more of a hassle for you. That's a lot to unpack. You guys really want to think about, what styles you want to do and where you want to do them. Once you guys map those out, then we can actually figure out pricing, because pricing is depending on those two things starting out. It has to be, you have to know what you're going to be servicing, and you have to know where you're going to be servicing at before you choose a price to give to anyone. Make sure you know those, because then you end up quoting a price that is incorrect, and then you end up losing out on money, where now you're either behind or putting yourself in debt. So you want to make sure that you are more accurate on your pricing and you're not just working and not getting anything for it. So yeah, next video we will get rocking on prices. See you guys in the next one.